Hello everybody and welcome to One Piece chapter 1023. Wow, the action and the reveals just don't stop. It's like we're on a train to Hypeville. And this week we got part of a color spread that was promised to us after the top 100 worldwide poll concluded. So if you remember, Oda said that he would be drawing the characters that had cracked the top 50 and then some. So in this case we see characters like Big Mom, Kaido, Kuma, and Moria that didn't make the top 50, but Oda decided to draw them anyway. So I'm assuming that he's going to be drawing the Yonko on the edges, and then I think it's pretty cool how like each of the characters appears to be using their ability. And speaking of volumes, the cover for volume 100 is officially available now in HD. I love this cover so much. The chapter cover shows Vivi pulling a Disney princess and Karu getting jealous about it. Then we go to the live floor to find King and Queen temporarily on the floor, and I'm kind of curious where Drake and Apu are, because I remember last time we saw them, they were around this same area. Beast Pirate targets Zoro, Kawamatsu takes care of him quick, and then Hyogoro tells the others not to interfere because these are Sanji and Zoro's main fights for the arc. Now I want to go back to this flashback that essentially takes place after Roger gets to Laugh Tale. So Roger's already king of the pirates here, and he tells Whitebeard the meaning, the secret behind the Will of D. So he's basically telling him what the D stands for. And so if you look at the flashback that Marco is having in this chapter, you can tell that Whitebeard looks a lot older. So at that point, Whitebeard already knows what the Will of D is. I mean, he probably knew a lot more than that, but the reason why I'm making this point is because he's talking about the Void Century in this flashback, right? Anything that comes before the establishment, before the foundation of Marijoa and the world government, that's Void Century territory. And so if you watched my last video, I said that I strongly suspected that the world government had wiped out King's race because of their affiliation with Sun God Nika, and that Marijoa was intentionally established at the top of the red line as a way to add insult to injury. So according to Whitebeard, before Marijoa, there used to be the land of the gods atop the red line. I'm assuming that's where Sun God Nika lived. Now, I think it's important to note that Marco has essentially been acting like a troll ever since last chapter. Ever since the end of last chapter, he's completely checked out, right? Mentally, he's not there anymore. He's left the live floor mentally. He's completely distracted. He's getting flashbacks to the point where Izo has to come in there and save him from getting shot. And then Marco's like, I was just waiting for you to save me. So I don't know if his observation hockey is that good that he like detected Izo coming to save him. But anyway, it's pretty funny. And then Marco asks Izo, do you believe in gods? And then Izo's like, what have you been smoking? I also liked Queen's Calamity rap. Drought, plague, wildfire, here we go. This is why I'm saying that I needed Apu in this scene. Where's Apu? He should be in the background on the soundboard, giving Queen some beats. Actually, no. Apu probably hates Queen right now because of the whole fiasco with the Ice Oni bullets. Queen shoots out some lasers at Zoro and Sanji, which they both dodge, and then Sanji makes a comment about feeling a little bit strange. And so, one of the things that we know about the raid suits is that they appear to be fire resistant. We see this a couple of times in Whole Cake Island. Number one, when the Vinsmokes actually put them on, you can see that they're surrounded by flames, apparently unaffected by them. And then we also had another scene where Big Mom uses Heavenly Fire on Reiju. Reiju gets hit by the attack, but then she gets up shortly afterwards and says that it's not going to be a big deal. And so this is why some fans have speculated that perhaps Sanji can't use Diablo Jamba with his raid suit on because of the raid suit's fire-resistant properties. Now each raid suit is biometrically locked, which means that they only activate if they're being used by the person that they're supposed to be used by. So the thing recognizes Sanji's DNA. And then we also know that Sanji was the only one of his siblings that didn't gain any genetic enhancements. But now I'm thinking, like, is it that he didn't gain any genetic enhancements, or is it that they've always been dormant within him, and that maybe they just needed to be awakened? And so at first I thought that maybe the raid suit has something built in it that is meant to trigger or awaken Sanji's abilities to their full potential over time. However, the fact that Sanji says that he feels weird only after wearing the suit for the second time is very weird to me, because it's like, so why didn't this happen the first time he used the suit? And I think that maybe it's not the suit, but maybe it's what happened when he put on the suit for the second time. He clashed with King that time, right? And we know that King is from a special race that can produce and conjure up fire, and because the raid suit is designed to detect somebody's biology, then maybe King touching the raid suit, maybe King making direct contact with Sanji is triggering an evolutionary change within Sanji that will allow him to use a special type of flame. Actually, I'm gonna have to take that back, because the second time that Sanji puts on the raid suit isn't when he fights King. It's not when he rescues Momonosuke. It's when he uses it to go to the bathroom house to get a peek of the girls, right? So what happened in the bathroom house that is making Sanji feel weird? Yeah, because he puts it on the first time to fight page 1, so that's number 1. And then he takes it off and meets up with Kinemon, and he says he wants to go to the bathroom house. And then we see him in the bathroom house with the raid suit, so that's number 2. And then the third time is when he actually clashes with King. So the only thing I can think of that could have happened to him in the bathroom house is that maybe in the mini clash that he had with Hawkins, Hawkins was able to grab what he needed from Sanji in order to make a voodoo doll out of him. So let me know what you think. Do you think that Oda made a mistake and that he actually meant to suggest the third time that Sanji put on the raid suit when he clashed with King? Or do you think he actually means the time that Sanji was using the raid suit in the bathroom? King is about to attack Sanji, but Zoro steps in the way and blocks the sword. And then Sanji goes on to return the favor by attacking Queen's ponytail claw that was meant to attack Zoro. I do think it's interesting, though, that the fingers of the claw appear to have some kind of a substance coming out of them, whether that's fire or some kind of poison or maybe another chemical. Whatever it is, Sanji does a really good job at not touching it, at avoiding it, because he hits the ponytail from over here instead of the claw. And so Queen is trying to look for an explanation for Sanji's Diablo Jamba, and Sanji essentially gives him the exact same reasoning that Oda gave us a very long time ago in an SBS. So a fan asks Oda, "Nice to meet you, Odachi. This question is serious, so please give me a proper answer. It's about the technique that Sanji used to defeat Jabra. Shouldn't the heat have been incredible given the effect it had on Jabra? Does Sanji ever think to himself, 'Oh wow, that's hot'?" To which Oda responds, "What are you talking about? Can you see anything? What were you looking at during the fight? That Sanji's feet were hot? They weren't that hot. I mean, come on. Sanji's heart was burning way hotter." So that's kind of like the explanation that we get in this chapter from Sanji as well. He starts spinning his leg like a fire cartwheel, and in that panel we actually do get to see Queen use armament hockey on his arm. Is this the first time that we've seen Queen use armament hockey? Let me know, remind me, because I think it might be. Not sure. But yeah, he's using it to block Sanji's attack. He makes a comment about how not even Vegapunk can match his tech or his cybernetics. And one of the things that I always found interesting about Queen's cyborg side, or the way that his cyborg body functions, is that it seems to bypass the effects of his devil fruit. Like his neck, for example. His neck can stretch out like a normal Brachiosaurus neck, but then it could also stretch out like a cyborg neck. So I don't know if it's the technology adapting to the Zoan devil fruit, or if it's the Zoan devil fruit adapting to the technology. And it's interesting that he mentions Vegapunk, because as we know, Vegapunk was the one who discovered a way in which inanimate objects could actually consume devil fruit powers. We go to Zoro versus King, and we see that King's sword has morphed, because now it has these little zipper slits, or like little gaps that it didn't have before. Because if you look back at the panel where Zoro is blocking the attack that was supposed to be aimed at Sanji, King's sword is clean. It doesn't have those little gaps. So it seems like it's adaptable. So he uses that to take away Enma and Sandai Kitetsu from Zoro, and then he takes advantage of that and comes in with a punch to Zoro's face, which Zoro blocks using Wado Ichimonji and armament hockey. There's a very, very important conversation that happens between Kawamatsu and Hyogoro, and I'll get into the specifics a little bit later. But for now, I just want to mention that King's fighting style that we see at the end of that section, you know, that panel where he's doing kind of like this twisted kick towards Zoro. We've actually seen a little bit of that fighting style in the anime during the Oden flashback when King is fighting Denjiro. And then we also see at one point that he stabs Ashura Doji in the back. And I think the point that's being illustrated here with the way King fights is that he's willing to play dirty, because he took away Zoro's swords, right? Momentarily, because he gets them back eventually. But I think the point is that he's going to do anything he can to win. And then Zoro kind of returns the favor. He says, like, well, if that's the case, I know you never called yourself a swordsman, and so I'm going to do whatever I can to win as well, because I made a promise about never losing again. Well, he doesn't say that, but we know that's why he says that, because he made a promise that he would never lose again and all that stuff. And so he's going to do anything he can to win, including maybe, perhaps, biting King's throat. And then another thing here is that because Kawamatsu makes a comment about Ryuma, like having one eye or having a scar over his eye, I think this is setting up Zoro finally giving us an explanation as to what happened during the time skip and why he also has a scar over his eye. I think there's going to be a moment where like he's going to say something like, you know, I couldn't use this against Kaido, but the whole reason why his eye is shut will be explained. I think that's what this scene is foreshadowing. So with both Zoro and Sanji, you can tell that Oda is setting up a moment where they each get a power boost, or they each showcase like a new power, a new technique that we haven't seen them use before. Because Sanji says his body feels weird, and then there's that reference to Zoro's scar. Cut to the second floor with Inuarashi fighting Jack, and Jack's hybrid form, it looks kind of awkward. I'm not gonna lie. His arms and abdomen are human, but his legs are mammoth. So it's like he's wearing wool pants. Then Inuarashi pulls a Nekomamushi where he grabs Jack by the trunk and flings him out of a wall, goes out onto the section where Ashura Doji is, and I thought it would have been hilarious if Jack had actually landed on top of Ashura Doji. Now the thing about these two scenes with Ino and Neko is that they seem to go together, right? And there's two things that unite those scenes together. The first one is obviously the moon. There's a hole that Kaido made when he took the scabbards up to the rooftop, and so that left an opening for the moonlight to come in, and the Nekomamushi is outside. So they both end up going Sulong for the second time at the end of their respective scenes. But then also what both scenes do is that they frame the events of Zou and Whole Cake Island from the Minx's perspective. So it kind of reminds you of how important those past two arcs were for them. Also, the cat and the dog appear to be avenging somebody in their respective scenes. So with Inu, he's avenging Ashura Doji, and the Nekomamushi is obviously avenging Pedro. And then watching them transform, I'm like, does that mean that Wanda and Carrot will be able to go Sulong form one more time again? Or are they done? I mean, Carrot looks kind of worried in her panel, so I'm wondering if she's having second thoughts about Neko killing Perospero. Anyway, we go back to Raizo versus Fukurokuju, and Fukurokuju is spinning his earlobes like helicopter propellers to be able to fly. Their conversation is the same as last week, but Raizo's comment by the end there could also be seen as blatantly foreshadowing what's about to happen to Momonosuke, or what has already happened to Momonosuke by the end of this chapter. We go to Udon to Porto Kage, and I like how Caribou seems to be so afraid that he's clinging onto somebody. We get a flashback to Punk Hazard, back when Luffy was very hungry and wanted to eat Momonosuke. It's the first time they meet, and I remember when I was reading those chapters week to week. It was so long ago. So it's nostalgic for me, honestly. Shinobu says that she made Momonosuke 28 years old, which is the age that he should be had he not gone through the 20-year time jump. So Momonosuke's body should technically be the age that it should be. So at least appearance-wise, he can go back to being an older brother to Hiyori, because Hiyori is currently 26. Now the first time Shinobu sees Momo as an adult, she cries and says that he looks exactly like, I'm assuming she means Odin, and so I'm kind of wondering what Yamato's reaction is going to be to that. Now right off the bat, you can just tell that adult dragon Momo is built different. Because not only are his clouds gone, well, they're not gone, they just evolved into fire clouds. But if you compare him to dragon form Kaido, you'll notice that Momonosuke has a lot more fire on him. So if you look at the sections that I'm pointing at with Kaido, for Kaido, that's hair, whereas for Momonosuke, those sections of his body are actually made out of fire. Or at least that's what it looks like for me, because if you look closely at the panel, you'll notice that Momonosuke's flames that are on his spine, like they kind of flicker. Like you have like little mini flames on top of the actual flames. And Kaido doesn't have that, so I'm assuming that it's actually fire. And if it is fire, I think that's going to be very relevant because of what we know about Nika, and also because of what we just learned about King in the previous chapter. Whatever happens, I do think it's pretty much a given that Kaido has to see Momonosuke in his adult form, because one of the things that has been brought up over and over again throughout the arc is how disappointed Kaido is in Momonosuke being Odin's son. So in other words, Momo has to prove Kaido wrong. I would also like to see Orochi's reaction to Momo being an adult, but the reaction that I know we're getting for sure is Kaido's. Alright, now it's time for me to take the information offered by this chapter regarding the Shimotsuki clan and offer it to you in a semi-linear fashion, right? I'm going to give you more context for it, and I think this chapter is an excellent example of what I foresee happening near the end, where because in One Piece everything is so interconnected, when Oda gives us an answer, right, about something, or when he even hints at an answer, right, because everything is so interconnected, that answer leads to another answer. It's like you have this tapestry and you pull a thread and you keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, and by the time you're done pulling, that's the entire tapestry. So yeah, the pieces really do begin to click with each passing chapter. The more information Oda gives us, the easier, like, you can see the pieces falling together into place. So I'm going to be talking to you about how the pieces kind of fit for me up until this point because of what has been revealed thus far about ancient times. A long, long time ago, before the age of the world government, there was a kingdom above the red line. And this kingdom is what we now know as the Ancient Kingdom. Now, the people of this kingdom worshipped the sun. More specifically, they had a leader called Sun God Nika. Sun God Nika was a fierce warrior with the power of the sun. He had the ability to summon and create fire. He also happened to value freedom over anything else in the world. Strangely enough, Nika's body was also made out of rubber, but the most important power that Nika possessed was his ability to make friends and allies out of the people he met. And because Sun God Nika belonged to the clan of the People of the Sun, one of Nika's biggest allies and group of friends were the people of the Clan of the Moon. The People of the Sun and the People of the Moon lived together in harmony for a very long time. And just like the People of the Sun had their kingdom at the top of the red line, the People of the Moon also had their kingdom, and that was known as the land of Wano. After all, it's not a coincidence that most of the founding families of Wano carry the word moon in their names. Fugetsu means wind moon. Amatsuki means heaven moon. Uzuki means rain moon. Shimotsuki means frost moon. And then Kozuki has the words moon and light in it. And we also know for a fact that Wano existed back then because Toki, who is from the Void Century, says that her parents were from Wano. Now, a very important aspect about the Kingdom of the Sun, or the Ancient Kingdom, was that it was made out of gold. And because the people of the Kingdom of the Sun were so joyful and prosperous, it naturally inspired envy and jealousy from other people around the world. Eventually, a group of people strong enough to overthrow the power of the Kingdom of the Sun united and betrayed Sun God Nika, eliminating him and trying to wipe out all of his supporters. However, because Nika suspected a betrayal, he was able to warn his friends of the Kozuki clan about it. And so, using a type of craftsmanship and language only they could understand, the Kozuki clan decided to write down the story of the Ancient Kingdom and hide it throughout the world in chapters of stone. And just like the poneglyphs were spread out to prevent Nika's enemies from getting their hands on the story, so was the gold that made up the Ancient Kingdom. The fishermen got a golden dragon out of it because they were cool with Sun God Nika, but most of the gold from the Ancient Kingdom was split 3 ways. Using clouds made out of his own fire before the betrayal, Nika was able to move a section of the Ancient Kingdom away from the Red Line and onto an island that we now know as Jaya. Obviously, I'm talking about Shandora. Shandora is the city of gold. It's also known as the right eye of the skull. I did watch the O'Hara video where he says that perhaps the left eye of the skull is somewhere else, and that's actually Laugh Tale. I do think it's possible, and I also think that part of the gold that belonged to the Ancient Kingdom is actually in Laugh Tale. And maybe it's a city, so you can't really take it with you, but it's there. And then the other part of the gold from the Ancient Kingdom was given to Wano. And we know this because when Yukimaru was fighting Zoro at the bridge, he tells him that Wano was once known as the Land of Gold. Obviously, in order to protect itself from the world government, the Land of Wano then goes into isolation, and then people search for the gold, so they want to get to Wano, and then Ryuma is in charge of protecting the gold. Shimotsuki Ryuma was so fierce, he defended the Land of Wano from pirates and nobles alike that wanted to steal the gold. Eventually, Ryuma passes away, but he is seen and honored as the god of the blade in Wano till this day. Obviously, Ryuma has a descendant, which in this chapter is revealed to be Shimotsuki Yoshimaru. Shimotsuki Yoshimaru, as well as Shimotsuki Yasui, were daimyos of Wano, so they each ruled over a section of Wano. Yasui ruled over Hakumai, and then Ushimaru ruled over Ringo. 21 years ago, Shimotsuki Ushimaru has a son by the name of Shimotsuki Zoro. Of course, by then, things in Wano are already pretty bad because Kaido and Orochi have already taken over. So in order to protect the life of his newborn son, Shimotsuki Ushimaru decides to send little baby Zoro to a whole new different sea away from Wano. Now, since Shimotsuki Ushimaru wanted to make sure that his baby son would be safe, he decided to send him away to a village that was founded by somebody that had left Wano several decades before that point. So I'm going to read you the story of Shimotsuki Kozaburo. Shimotsuki Kozaburo is the swordsman that created Enma. He made Enma, and he also made the Wado Ichimonji. So one of the first things that Kozaburo does, according to Oda, is that he forges Enma and gives it to the Kozuki clan so that it could be handed down to the heir of the Kozuki clan. Okay? Then, 55 years ago, he leaves Wano illegally because it's illegal to go outside the borders of Wano, and he sails to the East Blue. After that, he saves some people from some bandits in the East Blue, and he teaches people the way of the sword. Then he falls in love and decides to settle down and establish Shimotsuki village. Kozaburo then has a son, names him Koshiro, and then Koshiro goes on to have a daughter named Kuina. And then Zoro gets sent to Shimotsuki village at a young age because of Kaido ruling over Wano. And of course we know that Shimotsuki Kozaburo turned out to be the old man that taught Zoro the word of Tsunachi. Now when it comes to Shimotsuki Ushimaru, who I believe is Zoro's father after this chapter, Shimotsuki Ushimaru decided to stay in Wano because he decided to stay and fight. He wanted to fight for his country, so him and the other daimyo stood up against Kaido and Orochi, and he was killed in battle. Now, we don't know exactly who killed him, who killed Zoro's dad, but I think it's likely now that maybe it was King who killed Ushimaru. The thing about Shimotsuki Ushimaru is that he did appear in the manga very briefly before this point, and he does look a lot like Zoro. Look at that. But then they show him in the anime, and he looks like a completely different person. Like, even his hair color is different. So maybe they were just trying to hide him better in the anime, not show the family resemblance. Regardless, at one point during this chapter, Kawamatsu says that even the way that Zoro uses his swords, like his sword handling, is very similar to that of Shimotsuki Ushimaru. And I remember making a connection about that a while back, because during the Oden flashback, we do get to see the back of Ushimaru, and he's wearing this coat that has a bull on it. And so I thought, well, that's interesting, because Zoro actually has a Santoryu attack called Bull Demon. I also want to stress the point that I made earlier about the people of the sun and the moon, or the people that belong to the sun tribe, and then people that associate with the moon tribe, or the people of sun god Nika, or the people of the ancient kingdom with the people of Wano. And why do I think this is even a thing? Well, I think it's a thing because I've seen it now, like, repeatedly in the series. If Nika is Joy Boy, all right, then he must have trusted the Kozuki clan to write the poneglyphs, all right? So, sun and moon, right there. The Kozuki clan and the Mink tribe have been friends for centuries, so there's another connection there because the Minks use the moon as a way of powering up. So, I think we could extend the Moon clan over to the Minks as well. We also see the same pattern with Roger and Rayleigh, Goldie Roger and Silver's Rayleigh. Typically, or historically, the color gold has been associated with the sun, and the color silver has been associated with the moon. In astrology, for example, some people think that each sign is ruled by a celestial body. And so the celestial body that rules Leo is the sun, and the color for Leo is gold. And then the celestial body that rules Cancer is the moon, and the color for Cancer is silver. Shout out to the Library of O'Hara for this next one. Library of O'Hara translates the Vivre cards. And so I'm going to read you from Ben Beckman's Vivre card. Basically, this is what the card says. It says, in terms of personality, if Shanks could be compared to being the sun, always cheerful and willing to party, Beckman is like the moon, a quiet and dignified man. So again, sun and moon. Captain, vice captain, number 1, number 2. It just kind of goes back to what Roger said about people's dreams and wishes being inherited over time. So if Luffy is the descendant of Nika and Zoro is the descendant of Ryuma, then we have the descendants of both Sun God Nika and Wano's God of the Blade. And I guess like they were always meant to be close friends, because this friendship goes back centuries, if not longer. Now a question you might have is, why is Zoro called Roronoa Zoro then, instead of Shimotsuki Zoro? And I think the answer is going to be pretty much the same explanation that we got with Ace, where in order for him to be safe, in order to prevent him from being persecuted, he actually ended up taking his mother's name instead of his dad's name. So maybe something similar happened with Zoro, where Roronoa is actually his mom's name. Because you have to remember, he's the son of a daimyo, right? He's the son of a very prominent, important political figure in Wano. So he probably would be hunted down for it, because Zoro would be the heir to becoming the daimyo of Ringo. Another connection that I just made about the sun and the moon is that if you remember, at one point Kaido asks Luffy, so you couldn't become Joy Boy either, huh? Something like that. So to me, that makes me think that maybe Kaido wanted to be the next Joy Boy. He wanted to be the next sun god, right? And so if you think about it like that Kaido wanted to be the sun, right? Or the next sun god, it's interesting because King, who is the person that is right below him in terms of rank, is a Lunarian, right? That's what Queen says. He implies that King is part of the Lunarian race. And so of course we know that the word Luna means moon, right? So again, sun, moon. It's that same pattern that we see with other crews being repeated. I'm also curious if like King's race, the Lunarian race, has something to do with the Kozuki symbol, with the bird in the middle and the wings, and then a celestial body being part of the symbol as well. This is also why I was talking about the ability of Momonosuke's dragon being able to produce actual fire on his back. I thought that was interesting because we know that Momonosuke is a Kozuki, right? But then we also know that he's half Amatsuki, because Toki is an Amatsuki, and if you remember, the logo of the Amatsuki clan, or at least the symbol that we saw on Toki's kimono, is a bird flying by a crescent moon. Remember, Toki is from the Void Century, so I'm wondering if that symbol on her kimono has some connection with the Lunarian race as well. One last thing that I want to mention is that the cover for One Piece chapter 310 has a pink dragon on it. The cover features Luffy, Robin, and Usopp wearing Japanese samurai-like attire, and there's also a word, or like a Japanese kanji that says Shibaraku, and Shibaraku translates to in a while, or for a little bit. And so that cover is actually foreshadowing, because it actually took place, it came out during the Davy Backfight arc, and that's basically foreshadowing to the fact that Robin and Usopp would be leaving the crew momentarily for a little while in Water 7. However, because it does have like this pink dragon, and we actually got an amazing Robin chapter recently, I can only hope that maybe that also means that maybe we get a really good Sogeking / Usopp chapter very, very soon. And that is going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really liked the ending of this chapter. It reminded me of Game of Thrones, back when Game of Thrones was good. There's so much lore to unpack, and so many pieces are coming together to give us some answers. So I really like that as well. Thanks again for all of your support. Take care. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.